It's the ones that become solo agers all of a sudden without any preparation for it that have the hardest time. But the way they do that is becoming more of a joiner. It takes courage for people, especially people who are more introverted, but find a cause you believe in. Start doing some volunteer work, join a book club, go back to your synagogue or church that maybe you haven't been so active in a long time and see what's new.
Hello, and welcome to Not Born Yesterday, a podcast dedicated to older adults and the challenges and joys of aging. I'm Miriam Goodman, your co-host. Not Born Yesterday examines the problems and solutions of growing older today. We bring you the wisdom and voices of experts in the field of aging and offer tips on how to feel your best, use your lifetime skills and experience, and make the coming months and years as fulfilling as possible.
I'm your co-host, Lynn Winter-Gross. Not Born Yesterday is brought to you by Next Village SF. Next Village SF is a local nonprofit providing older adults in the Northeast neighborhood of San Francisco with support to help age in place, as well as offering cultural, educational, and social activities that keep people connected and engaged with the community and with each other.
The generation known as baby boomers is well into retirement and aging by now. Observers have noticed that this isn't your parents' retirement. We are the first generation to have safe and available birth control, and many boomers either decided not to have children or circumstances prevented it. The same is true of marriage. While society has long valued and almost required legal marriages for all, many boomer women and men opted to never marry, had long-term relationships without formalizing them, or married and divorced while pursuing careers and other opportunities long denied them.
Today, we are talking about the almost 20% of the generation that either never married or had children and are now considered solo agers. On their own for many years, solo agers are finding that now is the time to plan for the future by building relationships and support systems outside of the traditional family and finding meaning and purpose for the second half of their lives. Here to talk with us about the challenges of solo aging is Dr. Sara Zeff Geber, a national expert on this topic. She's a highly sought-after speaker, retirement coach, and author on the topic of aging for single and childless adults. Her insights apply to the never married, divorced, widowed, and childless older adults, as well as those who live far from their family. As an expert in solo aging, she's been raising awareness about those who are aging alone and want a safe and fulfilling life in their later years. Dr. Zeff Geber, welcome to Not Born Yesterday.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Well, let's begin with how solo agers might plan differently for their second or third acts. Can you share some specifics?
Sure. In a very real sense, solo agers don't plan very differently than their counterparts with children, but it's kind of a more urgent issue for them because depending on what kind of connections they have with siblings or nieces and nephews or other family members, they may have to build a social network with kind of a combination of blood relatives and friends and people they've known for a long time. And it's very important for solo agers to do their legal planning. In other words, getting someone their power of attorney, having backups for that, also an advance directive for healthcare, likewise with backups, and to really build their social network into something that they feel will support them and people they've discussed it with. So where parents, people who do have kids, the path for them is to do the same thing and to make sure that they talk about it with their kids. For solo agers, they need to talk about it with whomever they choose to be part of their social support system. So not so different, but definitely much more urgent. And I run into so many people, both solo agers and people who are parents, that haven't done all of that yet. so I don't think everyone becomes a solo ager, but a lot of people do. In fact, I just got done writing an article for one of our local publications on aging about widowhood and when widows and widowers become solo agers, what should they do at that point, and what are some of the critical areas for them to address? And again, it's so much about the social network, what they've put together. A lot of people, unfortunately, depend overmuch on their spouse or partner throughout their lives. Their partner, their spouse is their best friend, and the person they do everything with, and the person they talk to everything about. And then when they lose that person, they're really lost for quite a long time in many cases. And I tell people, especially those who are solo agers that don't have kids, that's a dangerous path to go down, that they need to broaden their horizons, build a social network that includes more than their spouse. And that's important for everyone.
What are some of the ways you suggest for solo agers to find community?
Solo agers who have been solo agers for quite a long time, again, are quite adept at that. They're connected with their community in some way. They do volunteer work, or they're still working at a profession that they love. It's the ones that become solo agers all of a sudden, without any preparation for it, that have the hardest time. But the way they do that is becoming more of a joiner. It takes courage for people, especially people who are more introverted, but find a cause you believe in. Start doing some volunteer work. Join a book club. Go back to your synagogue or church that maybe you haven't been so active in a long time, and see what's new. There's a lot of social action going on in places of worship these days, and a lot of opportunity to mix and mingle with people.
It seems to me that this is more of a problem for men than for women. Would you agree? So many of the men have been so dependent on their wives for their entire social life that they don't know how to go about doing all those things you just suggested.
Yes. Yes and no. We still have a lot more older women than men. And it's just obvious when you go to any senior community, the preponderance of women. So are men staying in their homes longer than women? I don't think so. But yeah, it is a problem when men become widowers, because again, they have depended a lot on their wives. So in that respect, yeah, they need to pick themselves up and kind of dust off their old social selves and get involved with people. And I'm a big fan of senior communities of all kinds, because different levels of there are different levels of financial ability to be able to move into one or join one. But whether it's a mobile home park that caters to people 55 plus, or a fancy senior living community somewhere, that is, to me, the best way to make connections. And if you're determined to stay and have to stay in your house for some reason, join a senior center. There's a lot going on at senior centers these days. I've spoken at quite a number of them, and I was really amazed and so pleased to see the kinds of things that they're doing these days. And they have to reinvent themselves. All these senior communities and senior community-based senior services have had to reinvent themselves, because baby boomers are just not going to go for the same things that their parents and grandparents liked.
So what about end-of-life decisions and health issues, and using community and friends for that when you don't have your children to rely on, or a spouse?
I think it's all part of the planning. To me, end-of-life planning is a vital part of planning for the future, because the end of life is part of life. And the more you can make sure that your quote unquote affairs are in order, and that really means doing the necessary work, the necessary legal work with an attorney to make sure that you have your power of attorney set up and an executor for your will, that you have your trust if that's a necessary thing, and an attorney will tell you. And a lot of people sit down with an attorney and they come up with a niece to be their power of attorney, and maybe a nephew to be their power of attorney for finances, and a niece to be their power of attorney for healthcare. And then they don't talk to them. They don't even tell them that they've named them in their paperwork and in their estate documents. And you must do that. It's with anyone. If you've named a sibling or if you've named a friend, sit down with them, give them a copy of what you've done and say, oh, here's my expectation. If a crisis should happen, this is what I want you to do. So for solo agers, it may not be family, or it may be a combination of family and friends. It's very important to cultivate friends that are younger than you for solo agers. And again, joining groups at your place of worship, or doing volunteer work, or being part of a book club or a choral group gets you regularly together with people of all ages in many cases, and gives you an opportunity to really get to know those people. And it doesn't happen in 2 or 3 months. It happens over years. So join something that you really have an interest in so that you'll stick with it. And I think you'll find that as the months and the years go by, you're forming new friendships.
I'm wondering how you feel about asking someone that you might know peripherally, not a close friend yet, if you can check on each other every day. You know, I'm concerned about these people who live alone, and you know, maybe they've fallen ill, maybe they're unconscious, maybe they fell down and can't get up. Do you encourage people to have a network like that, where at least they check on each other every day?
Absolutely. I have one, again, I would call her a kind of an acquaintance. We've known each other for several years. We've gone to a couple things together, but she's not a good friend. But she was telling me recently that she and a group of people near where she lives, because she doesn't live in my area, have formed just such a kind of a circle, and they check on each other. They've formed like partnerships to do that. And so they text each other every morning, say, okay, you know, I'm up and running today. And she ended up wanting to do that. She put the group together. She was the catalyst for this to happen. And it happened after she had taken a fall. She realized she didn't have anyone to check up on her, but it's a great idea. I really encourage people to do that. Absolutely.
I was with a friend last night who's a solo ager, and I told her we were going to be talking to you today. And I asked her if she had done all the necessary planning. And she said, oh, yes, I have an executor and I have a lawyer. I said, does anybody know who they are? And she looked at me like, what? I said, you better tell me who they are. Because, you know, you could be buried and have the funeral already and nobody knows that you really wanted to be cremated. You know, if you haven't seen this, if no one knows about these things. And it occurred to me that someplace I read that in some communities, people put on the inside of their door, if they're a solo agent, and this inside of the door. So if a rescue squad, if EMTs, whoever comes in and says, in case of emergency, contact this person. And it seemed to me that that's a really great idea, especially for people who live alone.
But I love the idea of putting something, especially for people who live alone. Whatever you consider yourself to be, a solo ager or not, if you live alone, that's an excellent idea.
Are there any other issues about solar aging that we have missed?
To me, the absolute most important parts of being a solo ager, the most critical things to do, are to develop your social network, have the conversations with people in your social network, and do have someone that you can rely on in an emergency. If something were to happen and you were taken to the hospital, who would you want them to call? Know who that person is and get that person's agreement that they want to be your backup. They want to be your advocate. There are professionals out there these days, actually, that do that. There's professional patient advocates. You can enlist the help of somebody like that. In California and Arizona, we have professional licensed fiduciaries that can be part of your estate plan, and they will, almost like a conservator would, handle your financial affairs, but they work with you when you're alive to help you set up whatever arrangements that you want to make. So it's the things we've been talking about that are absolutely the most important. You both asked just exactly the right questions.
Well, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom today. It was a pleasure having you on Not Born Yesterday.
For those of us who are not solo agers, many of the issues our guests talk about apply to all of us. No matter what your family situation is today, plan ahead, get involved in something that interests you, and be prepared.
So in News to Use today, we want to talk about friendship. We're well aware that making friends is not always easy. We're a long way from meeting other children in the sandbox or on the baseball field, but it's never too late to make connections. Research shows that there's a strong connection between friendship and health. So we need to understand the importance of friendship at every stage of life. Friends can help you celebrate the good times and support you in the bad times. They can help you cope with traumas or serious illness. Friends can improve your self-confidence, an important issue as we age and become invisible to many. They can help prevent loneliness and give you the opportunity to offer companionship as well. Friends can help you change or avoid bad habits, like not enough exercise or excessive drinking.
Adults with social support have a reduced risk of problems like depression, high blood pressure, and an unhealthy weight. Studies have shown that those with a strong social life are more likely to live longer than those without connections. So how can adults make new friends? First, show you can be trusted, be dependable by keeping appointments with them and arriving on time. If you make a commitment to be somewhere or accompany them on an outing, follow up. And if a new friend shares confidential information, be sure to keep it private.
Make yourself available. Building a friendship takes time, so plan to see new friends regularly and check in with them between times. If it feels awkward to talk on the phone at first, give it time as you will gradually become more comfortable with each other. Try not to get nervous or fear the worst as you feel tempted to stay home. Be open to new experiences. It's never too late to build new friendships or reconnect with old friends. It may take an investment of time, but friendships will help you achieve better health and a positive outlook for the future.
That's our podcast for today. Our thanks to our guest, Dr. Sara Zeff Geber, and our engineer, Jason Dahlstedt. Our theme music is from Hook Sounds. You can learn more about Next Village SF by going to their website, nextvillagesf.org. And thank you for listening. We'd love to hear what you want to discover and discuss. Please contact us at notbornyesterday@nextvillagesf.org. Be well, stay strong, and remember, you weren't born yesterday. I'm Lynn Winter Gross.
And I'm Miriam Goodman.